Welcome back, dear friends, to Highlights on the Book, Action and Reaction. Today we'll be discussing Chapter 6, which is entitled In the Prayer Circle. Last time, our video series, we concluded Chapter 5, which was entitled The Sickly Souls, which really, if we could do a quick look back into it, we study and learn about one aspect of Mansalpaz and the teamwork action that they utilize. Behind Mansalpaz, they utilize the help of Brother Orzil, who is a brother still in the process of total and redemption, if we could put it in that sense. So we see that with the teamwork of Brother Orzil, he's able to help other sickly souls who are in need of assistance. But in Chapter 6, which is what we're discussing today, which is entitled The Prayer Circle, we see the other end of the spectrum. We see that not only do they collaborate with brothers who are still in the redemptive process, but also they collaborate with higher minds. And why wouldn't it be that way, Leo? It makes sense it would be that way, that if we ask our mentors and seek advice from those who are more, experienced than us, it makes sense that in the spiritual realm, that it be the same, that we ask and seek help from the higher realms, from the higher spirits.
It's a learning process. It's a learning process where one of the things that we would like to emphasize with the start of the chapter, when Andre Luiz says, on our third night at the Institute, Instructor Jews will invite us to participate in the prayer circle.
Just 3 days.
Just three days. 3 amazing days, as so far as we have discussed here, how much they have learned, how much they have accomplished as well, the work outside, the prior, all the information that we have received within these 5 chapters, today the sixth chapter of this book. And we see now again the necessity of working this teamwork in the prayer circle. Here we see Druso, 10 other individuals, along with Silas, along with Hilario, and some friends as well that will accompany them in this work to connect with higher minds. Druso is not doing it by himself. Drew is doing it again with this family, these collaborators again, to connect with this higher mind that will come and help them in the development of the work in Mansalpaz. So it's a beautiful thing that we have to emphasize in our lives as well, this connection with the higher mind through prayer.
And the teamwork effort that is made, and that is what's beautiful, because even Druso, who is head of Mansalpaz, we see the teamwork action that goes on. In Minister Sanzio, we see that without the collaboration of Druso and all the other friends at this particular meeting, along with Brother Orzil in the previous chapter, without this teamwork, this vast array of work that exists in this field of Christ, if we could put it that way, in this field where God's children are scattered all around, needing help of any different type, we say that it is this teamwork fashion that God counts on for him to work through us, and we can put it in that way, because each one of us has a task to do.
Most certainly, and one of the things that we like to emphasize as well is the fact is the humbleness of the Druso and all of those they are working, even when they're collaborating with one another to work and connect with Sanzio, who is this beautiful instructor, as Andre Luiz mentions in this chapter. And they work so hard to get to that, to work with them. And we see that Druso is very humble. Is very humble, along with Sanzio, when they see that they're trying to make something that it doesn't have to be that way. And Sanzio comes down and say, come down, showing that really himself as a brother, a true instructor, a teacher. And that's how we connect with God, instead of showing ourselves that was on something that we are not.
What's interestingly, what you are referring to is the moment when they are already in this prayer circle and they are just talking with Minister Sanzio. And what's interesting is for our listeners and our viewers to understand how this scene is depicted. Obviously, we recommend you to go read the chapters, study the whole book, but the way that it's sort of set up in the same context that a mediumistic meeting would be, but slightly more evolved, because there they use electrical equipment, we would say, different types of equipment we don't yet have here in the physical, in Earth yet. But it's interesting because this collaborative effort, and they bring Minister Sanzio, and it's interesting because for a moment, he's just this ephemeral being that's being projected on this screen. But in the book, Andre Luiz says that once Minister Sanzio picks up on the vibration, that people are beginning to look at him like he's this holy saint. What does he do? He physically manifests himself in the room with them so as to not allow them to feel that he is so far from them, this long distance. And it's fascinating because it's not that he wants to say, look, I'm nobody, I'm beneath the scum of the earth, but he wants us to feel like we are on this pathway together. We are brothers and sisters, and he wants to tell us that I have been where you are, and I continue to work on myself, and that is what we would call showing his humanity, and that is the beauty of. That's what the definition we would call humility is. Not. It's in recognizing also that yes, I've worked hard to get where I am, but I'm also human and I am full of emotions, and we can be brothers and sisters as well.
Yes, and it's interesting that to get to that point, what had happened. I know we're going forward and then we're coming back, but it's interesting because to get to that higher point, we have to have the basis where Druso prays with such, with his heart to get to this moment of illumination where Sanzio comes down, as you mentioned, and presents himself. But the prayer is just a beautiful thing that perhaps we can. There is no way for us with the time and perhaps to express ourselves the way Druso expressed himself in his prayer. It is so touching.
Leo, you touched on something awesome, and we really wish to bring that highlight, is the power of prayer and the power of our thoughts, because in this particular prayer circle, what we found most interesting is that the mental discipline that was really needed by each participant in order for this manifestation of the Minister Sanzio from a higher realm to come down to do teamwork efforts. So we see that teamwork is great, it's fantastic, but guess what? It is actual work for each participant to have mental discipline, because Druso tells Andre Luiz, make sure you watch your thoughts. Don't think anything that's too wild or crazy, but have mental balance, discipline in your mind. And so Andre Luiz immediately says a prayer like, Jesus, please help me. Let me stay balanced. And we're paraphrasing. Of course, we encourage you to go and read it. But this also calls our attention to the mental balance when we are going to our Spiritist center, or when we are going even to our churches or our place of worship. Our mental emanations have an effect on the atmosphere. Actually have an effect on our atmosphere no matter where we are. But even more so when we go to a house where people are trying to study about God, we want to make sure that our mental discipline is on point.
And it's a very, very interesting point that you're trying to make, Kirsten, because in our evolutionary path, we have to understand that everything has a purpose. Everything has a purpose, especially when we're dealing with the higher minds, that they were instructed that at that moment on, when they're connected with this higher mind, Sanzio, that they're not to make questions, personal questions, or enlighten themselves for something that they need, but for the good of others. And that is the main purpose of this meeting with this higher mind. The purpose is to help others, to conduct the work of Mansampas and analyze what they can do better. And they bring let's say the information about all the patients that are to be rescued. We are here now also talking about the preparation of the reincarnation of Antonio Limpio, where he will reincarnate again with the help of his previous wife. And he will also receive the two brothers, and we can go back to chapter 3, refer to chapter 3, page 38, by the way, where we'll see his case when he killed, unfortunately, his two brothers, trying to keep their money or their fortune that they had together. He wanted to keep for himself. And the wife presents herself at the meeting, materializes herself at the meeting as well to help Antonio Limpio. And we have another case of Sylvia and Madalena as well, towards the end, coming to Sanzio as well, asking for the opportunity for their previous husbands to be treated among Sampas and prepare themselves as well for the next reincarnation. So we see again the necessity of a purpose, of a higher purpose, not to only attend to ourselves in our needs, but the needs of others. And again, we can bring this to our daily lives when we do our God at home, when we connect with God, when we are in society, because every moment is a moment of learning. When we are at work, at school, wherever we are, we can conduct ourselves this way.
But also that is why that saying, without charity there's no salvation, is so true, because the good that we do really helps save us and also actually others. It's a beautiful thing, and we see that also. What is so consoling about this chapter is that they had this very important meeting, that it was very disciplined. All the minds that were there was disciplined. There was an agenda, and everyone followed the agenda perfectly with respect and reverence for all those that were there. But look at who and why they were having this meeting about. They were having this meeting for a man who was a murderer, who killed his own brothers, 2 of them, to keep the family fortune that they all were about to inherit. But because of his selfishness, he wanted to keep for himself. But we see that in this chapter, one of many chapters in this book, we see the manifestation of God's love for us. We see that there are higher minds working in our favor. We see that this group came together to help Antonio Limpio to plan his reincarnatory plan, not to be redundant, to see how he was going to enter into a redemptive process to fix what he had done wrong and to really heal. Because in essence, really, it's not, God doesn't want us to suffer because, well, you did wrong, now you must pay for what you did. No, we have what we need to evolve in our lives, to understand, because Antonio Limpio is a man who's still on a journey, not unlike many of us.
Certainly.
Perhaps we may not be murderers, but perhaps we have transgressed the laws of God in some other way. But we can take solace that there always is another opportunity where we can redeem ourselves.
We have to be open. We have to be open for these opportunities.
And we have to want it.
Right.
Absolutely.
We have to be open. So we invite you all to look at, as we look at this chapter, as we talk about these meetings, these gatherings, especially when we are ascending ourselves through our prayers, right? To connect with higher minds, to have a purpose, to really analyze what's our purpose in life. What's our purpose in not only for 10 years, what's our purpose for 100 years, what's our purpose for 1,000 years. We can be the visionaries, start being the visionaries that we need to be in life. So we hope that this brings some help in our daily lives as we prepare ourselves for the following chapters as well, and this bring us this beautiful highlight of this gathering in a prayer.
We wish you many blessings.